very much for joining us. So what are some of the practical steps that our families can take in terms of providing support for students when they are doing that transition from high school through to university? High school versus university, very different beasts. With school, it's very structured. University, you have a lot more choices open to you, and you need to be a lot more disciplined about going about studying because you don't have somebody looking over your shoulder all the time. Broadly, you're going through a huge transition in life. You are progressing from being a child to an adult. And again, it can be quite anxiety provoking for people when it is about making these big life choices. And there's a fear, am I going to pick the right degree? Is this what I actually want to do? Am I going to pick the right courses? Am I going to pick the right university? Do I stay at home or do I go to another university overseas? These different universities offer different courses. Which one should I take? So that again can be, that the world opens up to you, and that can be incredibly exciting, but it can also be quite scary at the same time. So we've touched upon a few, which is great. And some other ones that are important to bear in mind, especially for parents when their children are going into university, is while at school you had one united year group, everybody progressed at the same point, you all got to know each other quite well. University, that changes substantially. You have different peers who are attending different courses with you, and they might be doing completely different degrees. So again, that's great because it suddenly exposes you to a much more diverse community of people, but there's also, it can be harder for students to make tight friendships. Research shows that the friendships that you make at university tend to be the ones that last throughout the rest of your life. Now that's not to say, a lot of people will also maintain their friendships at school, but it's at university because part of it is you are starting to establish your own identity and your own self-awareness about who you are, then the people who you choose to be friends with at university will often be your strongest support network. So when students first come, especially if you are coming from a different country, or maybe you're, and it could be you're also coming from a country where the language you spoke was different, and now this university, it's a completely different language that you're being educated in. So there's the challenge of making those friendships and those support groups. So you'll have different people and different types of people that you're going to be exposed to, which is great, but it's also can again be a bit anxiety provoking. Students, as we talked about, have a lot more choice about what to study, both in terms of your majors and your minors. But with more choice comes more anxiety. So how do you feel confident that the choices that you're making now you're still going to be happy with in 6 months' time, 2 years' time, 10 years' time? Learning, as we talked about earlier, is a lot more self-directed and it's unstructured and it's unmonitored. So you don't have somebody checking over you all the time. You'll find you'll have 3 hours free time between these classes. So how productive are you going to be during that time? And so you do need to be a lot more self-disciplined. So time management and study skills are a big thing for students to have to try and focus on. There's more group assignments. And that can be woohoo, or it could be because now you're not only responsible for your own learning, but you need to work with other people in order to get some good grades. Now again, group assignments are becoming more common at school, but then they're not nearly as common as what they are at university. And again, it's good life preparation because for most of the work that you do, you are going to be working in groups, and so learning how to do that is incredibly useful as a life skill. But you might not get to choose the people that you work with, or you might not know them very well when you're making those choices. And it might be that your style of learning or working can be very different to the people who you have to work with. And so you're not only monitoring how you're progressing in terms of the workload, but how they're progressing as well. Which again is great. Leadership skills, time management skills, teamwork. But for some students that can be, I've never had to worry about how this person is coping. I've only had to worry about myself. Your child is transitioning, as I said before, from being an adolescent to being a young adult. And by the very nature of that, the child is leaving the nest, whether that be literally because they're no longer living with the family, or figuratively. They are starting to develop their own identity, and part of that necessarily involves moving away from your parents and your family. You are trying to distinguish who you are as an individual as opposed to your identity as a son or a daughter or a brother or a sister or a granddaughter or something like that. So often this is a big transition for the parents and the rest of the family as well as for the student. Because they are exploring who they are, and again, the great thing about university is it provides a lot of opportunities for you to explore, both academically but also in terms of extracurricular activities, and that could be quite confusing to parents, where it's, well, 2 months ago you were really interested in this topic or this area, and now you're saying you want to change to something else, but why can't you make up your mind? And it's, I don't have to make up my mind yet. That's the brilliant thing. The actual campus, MU is slightly more unique, but often the campus itself is physically structured very different to schools. Schools tend to be smaller, and again, you kind of have your one classroom or your one building, and that's it. With universities, you have to be moving around, either across different levels of the building or to different buildings or even to different campuses for some universities. So just the practical process of knowing where you have to go and how long it takes you to get from A to B is important. The other thing is that individual academic staff, they are committed to you learning, but that's not the only thing that they're committed to. Again, at school, you often had that one teacher or maybe a couple of teachers, but they taught you and their entire focus was on you and your learning. Academic staff have a much wider range of responsibilities. They're not only teaching your course, they're teaching 6 other courses, and that's exposing them to 100 other students. They're doing their own research, which they need to dedicate time to. They have other research students who they are supervising. So sometimes it can be quite upsetting to students where it's, oh, but I want to talk to this person and they're not available whenever it is that I want them to be available. They have 1 hour a week that I need to try and schedule in, but I want to talk to them now. And so it's, again, setting those expectations. So top tips on how you can help. Normalize stress is the number one thing. It will happen. Think of, there's not a lot of parents in this room, but I guess I like to think of it of when, or even if you're a student, but think of your first day at a new job. And that's very anxiety provoking because you have to work out, where do I go? What are the policies and procedures? Who do I talk to about these different things? University is the same. For a student to go through no stress during that transition process is the more unusual response than students going through stress. Number 2, adjust your expectations. Because there's going to be some amount of stress, even students who were straight A kids at school, they might get the occasional B. And again, that is normal, especially because part of the university experience is experimenting and exploring different options. And you might try a course that you are interested in, and maybe it's just not your strength at that particular time because you've never been exposed to it before. But it's working out, what is it that I want to do? What is it that I'm good at? Because there are some courses and areas that you don't get exposed. I'm a psychologist. Psychology was not something we could study at school. So I thought that's what I wanted to do, but I didn't know for sure until I actually got into university and started to do that. But I know some students who go, oh no, now that I've seen it, this is not what I want to do. And then they were able to transition over to another degree. Encourage your kids to talk about their experiences, be it with you or with their friends, with other trusted people, with student support services at the university, and that could be academic supports or counselling supports that they provide. But talking about it is important because one, it again normalizes it, because any experiences you guys are having, it's very likely that a number of other peers around you are experiencing the same thing. So sharing that and seeing that it's a common experience relieves a lot of anxiety, and it helps with problem solving. Oh, I had that last week and I went and I talked to this person and that was really useful. Children who feel supported are a lot more resilient when they are facing challenges. So if you feel like, even if I fail at something or I struggle, but I know I can go to my mum or my brother or this person and they'll help me, then I feel a lot more confident and a lot more comfortable taking on those challenges and seeing how I go, because I'm not going to be yelled at if I don't do well. Create a study schedule and stick to it. Now, sometimes that takes a bit of adjustment because you need to see what works for you. And also you've got to base it on what your actual class schedule is like and everything. But make sure that you are managing your time effectively. And also think about what your own personal preferences are. Are you more of a morning person, or are you more of a late owl? And you'll find you'll get more study done. Do you like group study? I hated group study. I got very distracted. So I had to study by myself in a very quiet space, no distractions. So I had my parents drop me off. I actually went to boarding school, and then I boarded in college. So if I had to go home, I would have my parents drop me off in the library where there was literally nothing else for me to do apart from study, because being at home was way too distracting. So also you have to think about that physical space that you're going to study. Are you someone who likes everything to be completely quiet, or do you like a bit of background noise? Do you find working in a cafe and the energy around you actually energizes you and keeps you focused, or does it distract you? Are you someone who likes to listen to music? Do you want to have somebody there with you who's also studying, but you're not actually talking with each other, but it just motivates you to see that there's somebody else doing that? So think about what works for you and put together a plan, and explain what your plan is to the rest of your family and to your friends so that they can support you during that. Because it's very difficult when you're like, okay, I'm a night owl, so I'm going to study between 9 and 11 p.m. because that's what works. And then at 9:15, your friends are calling you and go, let's go out, we're going to have fun. You're like, and so explaining to everybody, like, support me as much as you can. And the way that they do that is by letting them know what it is that you want to do. And sometimes that can be, look, I'm going to be really antisocial for the next 3 months because exams are coming up or something. I've seen people and they put up Facebook posts. I am going off the grid for the next 2 weeks. It does not mean I am dead. It just means I have exams. And then they might go, and then but on the Friday after my exams, I'd like to see everybody, so I'm going to have a little get-together after that. And again, does that work for you? Do you put together something that you're going to be looking forward to at the end of it? Is that motivating for you? So think about, in terms of your study, when are you going to get it done and where are you going to get it done? But also you need to allow time both for rest and relaxation. Again, sleeping is very much it's an individualized thing. Generally, people need between 6 to 8 hours of sleep. And again, how you want to structure that is a very personal thing. Are you someone who likes 8 straight hours at night, or are you someone who will sleep for 6 and then you like to have a nap in the afternoon between 4 and 6 and then you get up again? So there's no hard and fast rules about sleep, but you do need to sleep. In terms of your brain consolidating everything that you are learning, sleep is when all of that happens. So think of it as it's part of your study regime, and it's an essential study tool that you get sleep. And it's also essential that you get rest time, non-sleeping rest time. So how is it that you like to relax and recuperate? Are you someone who likes to go out with your friends, or do you like to sit and watch a movie? Do you like to game online? Again, there's no hard and fast rules about what you should and should not be doing, but what works for you. And make sure you factor that in, because that can also be very motivating. I'm going to study hard for the next 3 hours, then I'm going to reward myself by watching Stranger Things for 2 hours or something like that. Because I'm hip and I know what the cool television shows are. Encourage and enable exercise, sleep, and a good diet. So for some people, exercise is something that they really love, and so that's how they rest anyway. For others, it might be, I don't want to do it, but I know that this is actually helpful for me. Again, exercise is incredibly important. Lots of research showing that, exercise has huge benefits on you, both physically but also psychologically. So I won't go into all of that now, and also we don't have time. But again, exercise, what is it that you enjoy? Diversity is important. I would definitely recommend that even if you love yoga, that's great, but don't just do yoga. Try and do some other stuff. Things that involve hand-eye coordination is also great in terms of that mental activity. Yoga and things that promote flexibility is excellent. Team sports some people love because there's that social element to it. So again, what is it that you enjoy in terms of your exercise? Because that's going to be a lot more motivating for you as well if you pick things that you like. But that also means you can change things around. You might decide, I've done 3 months of this, now I'm getting a bit bored, let's switch over and I want to go swimming from now on. Or it's incredibly hot outside, I can't go for a run for the next 3 months or I will melt. So instead I'm going to join the gym. They have a 1 month free trial or something. I'm going to do that and see how that goes. So mix it up, because that also maintains that motivation level. And I say encourage and enable because step 1 is, encouraging people to do it, but you've also got to help them do that, either by thinking about if they need to actually get somewhere to do this exercise, how are they going to do that? Try and minimize as many of those barriers as possible. And it's the same with a diet. Again, diet is a very personal thing, and I'm not a nutritionist. Generally, the ballpark rules are things like as unprocessed as possible, so as to their natural state as you can, lots of fruits and vegetables, and minimizing sugars and fats. But again, it's what works for you. Like, I know for me, I need carbs. So if someone was to tell me you can't eat bread and rice are bad, no. So I need that in order to maintain my energy levels. And again, sometimes food can be a great motivator. I will study this hard and then I will treat myself with 2 little chocolates afterwards. But it's about moderation as well. And so again, you need to enable that. What are you, if your child is living at home, what's in the house? So that if they get hungry and they go to the cabinet, what are they going to find in there? It's a lot of chocolate and biscuits, or is it carrot and hummus? I know for me, it's like if I don't have it in the house, then I won't eat it. So the first step is, what do you buy at the supermarket? And then I will do a big batch of a stir fry or a pasta dish, and then that's my lunch for the next 3 days. And if you're and it's the same if you're not living at home with your family, you're living on your own, what are you actually buying and what are you making for yourself? And again, for some people, cooking is a very relaxing thing that they enjoy. So are there some certain recipes that, my mum makes this and I'd really love to learn how to make that? And it's also very healthy. What else? Encourage involvement in extracurricular activities at university. There's lots of options out there, and it's great. So whatever you're interested in or you think you might be interested in, please explore those opportunities, because you're not going to get so many opportunities so lovingly laid out onto you on a silver platter. It's there. Please try it. It breaks up the monotony of your study. It introduces you to new people, and it's a great networking tool. My dad always talks about how his boss he met through playing cricket at university. And they got along really well through that. And the guy was like, I can tell that you're going to be a fun person to work with. So he brought him over. So please try and make use of those opportunities. And students who get more involved tend to excel, both academically and socially. Part of that is it does act as a stress release, but also it makes you better at time management. If you have nothing else to do, you tend to sort of let the time slip by because you're like, I've got all day to do that. So then you find you haven't done it at the end of the day. But if you know, I only have 2 hours to get this done because then I'm going to go and meet with my friends and do this, and then I've got drama class, and then I've got music class, and then I'm meeting with the debating team or something, then that helps a lot. And have a walk. I mean, you guys have probably done this, but have a walk through the physical space that you're going to be going to. Where are your classes? Where are student services if you want to go to them? Where do you get good food or good coffee? That's important. How long does it take for you to get from A to B? Where can you park, or where does your bus drop you off, or where do you hop off the metro, and how long does it take you to walk from the metro to your class? Practice all of that. Where are your exams? That was one that I didn't put up. But I know, like, for my university, a lot of our exams were at the nearby race course. So you could drive there, but they also had shuttle buses. But it was, make sure you actually know where you're having your exam, because you don't want to be, oh, relaxed, and then you're massively stressed because you can't find where you're actually going, or you've misjudged how long it's going to take you to get there. So we even encourage students to, like, physically do that. Check how long it takes you to actually get there. Or if you're going to park, don't assume there's going to be a parking space right out the front. It might be 3 blocks away and it's going to take you 10 minutes to walk from your car. Do you have coins to pay for parking so that you're not freaking out about getting a ticket halfway through your exam? If there is an open day or events like these, please go. Try and meet as many of the staff and the other students as you can. With familiarity breeds confidence and being comfortable. And so this last one is just thinking about what might help you specifically or your own child individually, because we all have our own individual needs and quirks and idiosyncrasies. So what do you think actually would work really nicely in supporting your child or yourself through this process? So that's it. So thank you very much.